several times where you may be thinking to yourself, if I should leave a job, and do I have a strong enough reason for wanting to leave? How will people look at me? Am I just a quitter, or is it justified? Have I come too far? Can I stay just a few more years to sacrifice my peace and the peace of others? Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to pursue your dreams, but your fears are in your way? Do you ever think how life would be if you were able to prioritize yourself and your loved ones and never have to miss an important date or event while you do exactly what it is that you love and what you're passionate about? Are you tired of pondering if the job is for you or not in law enforcement, as a police officer? Have you been persuaded by others just to stay because you're guaranteed a pension after 20 to 25 years of employment, but you have nobody else to talk to that's around you that could give you a different perspective, a perspective that doesn't follow the same rhetoric of stay for 20 years, stay for 25 years, and you're going to get a pension and you're going to get great health benefits? Welcome to Purpose Over Pension. My name is Lenny Bradley. I am a recently resigned New York City detective. I did 17 years within the New York City Police Department. I operated as a patrol officer, a field training officer, a neighborhood coordination officer, and a youth officer within the scope of my employment within the 17 years. I've never been suspended or placed under any serious disciplinary action. I have trained and I've mentored many of my fellow officers and also members of the community in which it is that I serve. And I also had a previous podcast by the name of Finest United. So I'm going to tell you this. The reason why I think that you should hear me out is, for one, because this perspective that you've never had is one that I am going through right now. It is one that I've gone through in order to lead me away from the job, to pursuing my purpose, where you might not have those people around you, as I stated before, that will be able to do the same thing. In this episode, I'll be providing you with 4 things. I will share the strategies and the tips I use to change my mindset as to why the possibility of me leaving the job wound up becoming a reality. I'll also be telling you, number 2, the skills I learned outside of the job to help me transition and how it all started as hobbies and side hustles for extra income. 3, I'll tell you the things that I avoided and also the people. I will then share, for number 4, the final catalyst that drew me to the conclusion that enough was enough with me staying on the job. But first, before me getting into all of these steps, let me share a bit of a story with you. Now, the story, it dates back to 2004, before I became a member of service with the NYPD. I worked for Stop and Shop doing loss prevention. I went from location to location here on Long Island. Whatever store had the most crime or having the most theft, they would shift specific officers to these stores, or they would change them around because I worked in plain clothes as an off-duty loss prevention officer. Sometimes it would involve me walking around the store, checking to see if people were stealing, acting as if I wasn't shopping myself. And then other times it would just entail me being in the store, in a room with cameras, spotting people stealing, and I will go from there. During that time, my mother, she introduced me to the book by the name of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And that book really opened up my eyes and my perspective and let me realize that I wanted to be a real estate investor, or I wanted to do something where I did not have to rely on a job, that I set myself up with assets that would pay me instead of relying on the job, because I knew that at any second, if a job did not like me or if there was something that happened at that job where they had to lay me off, I would have to fend for myself. And I never wanted to be in a position like that. So once again, I read that book. I found a friend of mine that was on the same job as me at the time, and he was interested in real estate as well. He wound up coming across a guy that claimed that he was experienced in real estate investing, and he mentored us, or quote unquote, he mentored us. Now, what that entailed was me going from door to door of pre-foreclosed homes And I would ask them if they needed our help. So once I would go to these foreclosed homes or these pre-foreclosed homes, if they needed help, I would pass it over to this gentleman and he would supposedly close the deal. Within the span of that summer in 2004, I came across two people that genuinely needed this man's help. I was excited because I said, okay, well, not only am I helping somebody, but I'm going to get paid from this as well. And I'm stepping into a realm that I've always wanted to be involved in since reading Rich Dad Poor Dad. I took the action. To make a long story short, this man jerked them. He got their house, didn't do the right thing. They wound up losing it. Left a bad taste in my mouth. I said, you know what? Stop and Shop is a dead-end job. I want to get into real estate. In order for me to get into real estate, I feel like I need something more solid. I need something more grounded. I didn't know what it was. My father and my uncle said, why don't you just become a police officer? You already started the process in the past. What happened? So make a long story short, once again, I decided to get onto the job in 2006. I decided to take the opportunity. That was the second class where they had a $25,100 starting salary. I'm still living home with mom and dad. And I knew based over the fact that a lot of people wouldn't want the job, that I would have more of a chance of getting the job due to the fact that there wouldn't be as many candidates. Another thing that happened was I was involved in a fight at Stop and Shop. That was the main thing. I was involved in a fight over some DVDs and chicken wings or something like that. And I injured my knee and I said, you know what, if I'm going to be doing this for DVDs and chicken wings, I might as well just freaking become a cop. That's my story as to why it is that I got into the job. I saw it as an opportunity for me to get into real estate and to form businesses for myself and my future family. And the job was basically just a tool for me to do that. So that's why I enrolled with the New York City Police Department. Getting back to these strategies, the first strategy that I want to talk about is the strategy of changing your mindset. I found the things that I was interested in. I found hobbies that I thought that really resonated with who I was and what it is that I did. And when I came across those things, I always figured, there must be a way to make money from it so that if I ever need to transition from this job, that I would have the ability to do that. So some of the things that I ran across, I already mentioned real estate. And the real estate I came across once again through Rich Dad Poor Dad. I got into selling luxury watches. I started a podcast, like I stated before, and then I had an e-commerce store by the name of Finance United where I sold t-shirts, I sold hoodies and hats and patches and things of that nature. So I was always trying to figure out how I could turn a passion or how I could turn a hobby into a form of income. And that mindset came from me reading that book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and then also putting myself around people that were of the same mindset. But we'll get into that a little bit later as well. The times where I listened to podcasts the most, the times where I was able to soak up a lot of that information, it came during my commute. My commute to East Harlem, I worked in the 23rd precinct. My commute to East Harlem was about an hour. Usually, sometimes it'll be about an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours. I started listening to real estate podcasts. I started listening to business podcasts. And that really helped change my frame of mind to get me into the mindset of, all right, not only am I a police officer, but I can also be a real estate investor. If I listen to these people enough, if I keep these ideas in my mind, then it'll eventually translate or transition to where it is that I need to be to begin real estate. The other thing is reading self-help books. I read a lot of self-help books on mindset, a lot of self-help books pertaining to investing, pertaining to staying positive, just a lot of things that influence me in a great and a positive manner. So that if you get into that, if you start focusing on what's being put into your spirit, what you're taking in into your ears, what you're taking in into your eyes, that's going to change you in a major way. Listen, you have 2 ears, you have 2 eyes. That goes to show you, and you might have heard this before, but that goes to show you how important these elements are. Your eyes, you being able to see, and you being able to hear, because you have 2 of them. Watch what it is that you take in. Watch what it is that you listen to. It could cause you to become who you want to be or who you don't want to be. So be careful with that. The second strategy that I want to mention is not only taking those things that I learned outside of the job, but then applying them, taking the action, not just sitting around reading it, but put the things into effect that you learned about. So the skills that I learned outside of the job is number two. I took the things that I learned, I put them into action. This is the most important. I learned how to wholesale homes, which is me calling a potential seller, getting that home under contract, a seller that is in pre-foreclosure, a seller that has a home that's disheveled, that needs various repairs. I'll get that home under contract, and then I go and sell that contract to an end buyer. That's something that I'll get into at a later date as well. Things that I learned, I'm going to talk about those as well. From me wholesaling, right? The skills that I learned is I translated wholesaling into being able to speak to strangers about their homes and becoming comfortable with cold calling and not speaking to people that I was comfortable with, but people that made me very uncomfortable, being cursed out, being rejected constantly. It really builds a mental toughness that needs to be acquired, especially if you want to go out into this world and do something that you truly believe in and truly want to pursue. You have to be able to sell yourself, and you have to be able to take rejection, because a lot of people don't want to hear what it is that you have to offer. And a lot of people aren't going to see things the way that you do. So three is I created an e-commerce store. And by me creating an e-commerce store with Finance United, that allowed me to it took the ideas that I had in my head, and it allowed for me to take those elements and then put them on a t-shirt, put them on a patch, put them on a hat, and to see those things come to life. And not only that, for people to actually want to patronize my services and wear what it is that I put out, it built up a lot of confidence in me, in knowing that anything that I want to create, anything that I can imagine, the fact that somebody is willing to pay for something that I created, it built up another level of confidence in me. It allowed me to say, okay, well, this is another avenue. If I wanted to pursue it, I can. It built up another skill. Get into things because it's going to help you build another skill also, not just for the money, but it'll allow for you to have better relationships, and it'll help you build skills that you'll never know if you'll be able to use in the future or not. Now, the next thing is I created a podcast, and I also created a YouTube page. The podcast, once again, Fighters United, the YouTube page, Fighters United as well, where I interviewed various people. I spoke about different topics that were going on within the New York City Police Department or going on within the city. I spoke about various entrepreneurial topics as well, and mental health issues, social media, a few things. I made about 15 episodes or so. I'm not really sure the amount, but the thing with that is I wanted to continue it. I was very sketchy about continuing because the job, if you say things that they don't like, they could shut you down. It could put me in a tough situation and cause me to possibly be fired or to receive some other type of disciplinary action. So I was very cautious, and I wound up stopping it because I knew that I wouldn't be on the job too long, and I knew that eventually I would get to a space where I could speak freely and share my ideas without worrying about getting fired. What that gave me is it gave me the confidence to use my image and to use my voice in order to spread the things that people needed to hear, or in order to share my views and input on a lot of things that were going on at the time. And people that feel the same way, people that felt the same way, what it does or what it did was it allowed them to know that there's somebody else that is understanding of their situation. Just like here with Purpose Over Pension, not everybody's going to see my views, but the ones that do, it's a breath of fresh air. Whenever you are feeling something, it could work in the positive and it could work in the negative as well. But whenever you feel that you are in a bad place, or whenever you feel that you're in a good place, whenever you have people that align or have the same views as you, is always a breath of fresh air. And then once you're able to build a community, or once you're able to be a part of that community, it really uplifts you in ways that can't be described. Finance United, it really allowed me to say, okay, I have a voice, I have an image that people can relate to. So in the future, which is now, the present, it gives me the confidence in knowing Not everybody is going to agree with what it is that I say in my views, but I know that there are going to be a lot of people that do. There are going to be more that do that don't, in my personal opinion. So Finance United podcast and YouTube page, it did that for me. Also, the last one, as far as the skills that I obtained, was buying and selling luxury watches. And what that did for me is it helped me learn how to buy. It helped me learn how to sell. Sales is very important. All of life is pretty much you selling yourself in some way, shape, or form. So if you can get other people to purchase what it is that you're selling, just like when I had the e-commerce store, it says a lot about your personality. It says a lot about who you are and how much you want to cater to others and their needs. And not only that, but with me buying, selling luxury watches such as Audemars Piguet and Rolex and $50,000 watches, $40,000 watches, and things at that high level, it really put me around people that were wealthy. And people that are wealthy, it's not just about the money that they have, but it's the mindset. And when I put myself around those people because of the value of watches that I was dealing with, and I got to form relationships with these people that are wealthy, it helped change my mindset to let me know I can be wealthy as well. When I'm sitting down with somebody that looks just like me or somebody that is a millionaire and you would never know it, and I'm able to have a conversation with them and they tell me I could do it just like them, it really builds a whole different level of confidence that I can't explain. Selling watches, luxury watches for that matter, it helped me so much in that way. As far as the things that I avoided, number 3, first thing is negative people. If you have negative people in your circle, get rid of them. And get rid of them as soon as possible. I've had several people that were around me that always complained, that always talked about the situation that they were in like it was the worst scenario. People that gossip constantly and just talk about the next person, shake your hand 1 second, and then behind your back is another story. Stay away from those people because there's no way that they're going to be able to uplift you, especially if your way of thinking is different from the majority. They want you to think just like them so you can always be in the same situation as them. And it works the same for the positive, but the negative people, stay away. It's very imperative that you do that because you will not be able to function in a positive manner if you have somebody that's always whispering in your ear, telling you why something can't be done and always complaining. 2, as far as the things that I avoided, negative forms of media, social media, the news, stay away from it. Remember, I talked about the eyes and I talked about the ears. It goes back to you see it playing out with what it is that I'm saying right now, as far as the negative people and as far as the negative influences. Stay away from it. Stay away from it. You don't realize it, but it gets embedded into your subconscious. It gets embedded into your soul. I always use this example. I remember I used to be in a car in R&P, and there would be a song playing over and over and over again. And one of the partners that I had, he always listened to music that I didn't really like. But you know, it was a medium. We picked the station that we both could deal with, and we just let it be there. And there were certain songs that would play over and over and over again. And to get to the point, I hated them, and I never knew the words. But then all of a sudden, I would just start singing it because it was embedded into my subconscious. It was embedded into my soul, right? But those words, those things that will be said in that song, those people that are around you that are speaking negative, it gets embedded into your soul as well. And before you know it, you're speaking like them. You're talking like them. You're complaining like them. So stay away. You see the news, things that you never even thought were possible to happen. Now you're worried about it happening to you. You're worried about it happening to your family. People say, oh, well, I got to know what's going on. And da-da. You don't got to know what's going on. You don't have to watch every crazy video that somebody brings into the precinct in regards to somebody getting robbed or murdered or raped. You don't have to watch that. You don't. But you choose to because you want to feel like you're in the in crowd, or you want to feel like you're doing your job, or you want to feel like you're being informed. That's not what's happening there. You want to be a part of that negative element because you feel comfortable. Moving on. Inaction and procrastination. Going back to what it is that I talked about with the things that you learn, right? You learn something, take action. Don't sit around. And this has been a tough one for me, especially when I'm having a bad time. I procrastinate. I start to doubt myself. I start to have fear. And it really just stagnates us from who it is that I believe God and Jesus Christ has meant for us to be. Move. If you feel it in your soul, if you know that you're good at it, if you know that you could crush it, just move. Push forward. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be easy, but you'll be able to go to sleep at night and you'll know that you gave your best. Just go for it. I promise you it will feel great. You will love it. Then the last one, stay away from coping mechanisms. What are coping mechanisms? Alcohol, cigarettes, gossiping, pornography. Those are just to name a few. Stay away from them, because instead of you figuring out what's going on within you, instead of you figuring out what it is that needs to be done to heal you from within, now you are going to these mechanisms in order to heal you, and it's only temporary. It doesn't last long. You drink, you feel like crap the next morning. You smoke, you're destroying your body and you regret it. You watch pornography, you feel like crap afterwards and guilty. You feel like a sucker. Stay away from it. It'll make a big difference. Replace those things, if possible, with the positive. And a lot of those coping mechanisms, what happens is they seep in when we're bored. They seep in when we're tired. I've talked about the quote, hungry, angry, lonely, and tired. That's when it creeps in. Number 4, I'm going to talk about the catalyst. I'm going to get to the juicy part of this. I would say everything started for me in 2020 during COVID. Experienced a lot of death. Family members, thank God, were good. Friends of mine, their family members, not so much. Police officers that I've known, not so much. Due to our duties and our responsibilities as police officers, took a lot of time away from our families. It risked a lot of health issues for our families going out, serving the communities during the pandemic. But the worst spit in the face would have to be when it came down to the point where I had to fear losing my job because I did not want to take a vaccine. I know a lot of you out there, you're going to feel me when it comes down to this. I know a lot of you out there, you wanted to take that stand and you didn't want to get the vaccine. I know a lot of people just did it because they didn't feel like it was a big deal. For me, it was a huge deal. After sitting for months and months and months, watching this person resign, watching this person get terminated, fortunately, it never came down to me. But during that time, it allowed for me to say, I never want anybody to control me on this level again. And thank God I've learned real estate. Thank God I've learned e-commerce. Thank God I've learned how to sell watches. Thank God I've learned how to do whatever the case may be. Because if it comes down to the point where I have to leave because I do not want to get this shot, at least I'll have those things. And it got to the point where it was getting close. I received a notification stating that if I did not get it within a certain amount of time, then I would be forced to resign or be terminated. But they kept changing the laws. They kept changing the rules after a while. And you have to get tested. And if you got tested, you were all right. And ultimately, during that time period, there were a lot of other things that were going on. For instance, forced overtime due to protests. Forced overtime due to increasing crime within the city due to legislations that were absolute trash and a mayor that was absolute trash. The city was running amok. And guess who had to make up for it? Us, constantly, over and over and over again, because of the laws that were put in place, affecting us and our family. Not only that, but I saw the writing on the walls in regards to the numbers game coming back. You got to bring in these amount of criminal court summonses or oath summonses or arrests. That's fine. It's a part of our job. And what was it really accomplishing when these lawmakers allowed for people that were committing serious crimes to get out the next day, get back to the precinct after processing an arrest, and they're right out. They're right back at the precinct picking up their property before you go home. On top of that, I had a newborn daughter that I was barely seeing because of the control that was put in place, or because of the lack thereof correct legislation to take care of the criminals the way that they needed to be taken care of. I had 2 other kids that I didn't get to see often, and it wasn't going to be a third. And most of all, the most important was my relationship with God. I wasn't able to go to church the way that I wanted to. I wasn't able to participate in church the way I wanted to. Be a part of men groups that helped me with some of the struggles that I've dealt with during the course of my career, during the course of life. I needed to make sure that I was right within, mentally and spiritually. And with all of these things going on, it just didn't feel right with me knowing all of the things that God has put in my life to set me up to trust Him and not trust the job, but to understand the purpose that He has for me and to pursue it was the priority. The funny thing that happened is when I came to the conclusion that I was going to leave because of the vaccine, because of these other things. But like I said, it was the vaccine and the vaccination and the forced vaccination that they tried to put on me that really spearheaded things. When I was about to leave, I received an email stating that I no longer had to get the vaccine. I already filed my paperwork. I already received my retirement date. So I could have stayed. I could have stayed and not have to worry about those things. I wouldn't have to worry about getting the vaccine. But those other elements and the fact that I already knew what I was capable of, and the fact that I already knew that I had something to fall back on from years of changing my mindset, from years of putting myself around the right people, from years of avoiding the wrong people, it enabled me to have that confidence. From years of knowing that I was missing God in my life, and now knowing that He's right here with me, and only with Him can I be safe. Only with Him can my family be safe. It was only then that I knew that I would be all right, because He has put me in a situation to have pure confidence in Him and faith in Him, and once again pursuing my purpose. And if you follow these same guidelines, if you go about building skills, avoiding these people, avoiding those negative things, not allowing anybody to control your future by you controlling the now, everything will be well. I just want to say thank you for hearing me out and listening to what it is that I have to say about my journey and why I left the job. And in the next episode, I'll be discussing what it is that I'm currently doing at the moment in order to sustain a living, in order to keep my head on straight, because entrepreneurship, not having a steady job every 2 weeks, steady paycheck every 2 weeks, it's not easy. But the peace that I have within is something that I wouldn't be able to have if I was still there. And don't get it twisted. This is just me. I respect everybody that's on that job that is doing God's work and is passionate about it and loves it. But if you're not, you shouldn't be doing anything that you don't want to do or anything that you don't love. for an extended amount of time. You do what it is that you have to do for the time being, and you get out, because life is too short for you to not find your purpose. Once again, thank you for listening. I'm your host, Lenny Bradley. You'll see me on YouTube. You'll see me on Instagram. I have a lot of things in store through the purpose that God has given me. Take care, everyone, and be blessed.